Hello and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about something I've been thinking about now for it's been 3 months. We're in March officially. I wanted to do right after the new year a best games of the 2010s, as we're going to call it. Um, I couldn't really come up with a definite list. I couldn't think of, do I just want to do my top 5 favorite? Do I want to pick systems? And it came down to I pretty much picked my favorite from each genre. Um, to be fair, there are no handheld games in here. There's no mobile. There's no DS, PSP, Vita, whatever. This time around, this is all console. I considered the handheld games, but I don't know. I just felt like they were good, but I wouldn't call them the best of the decade. If you want to do a separate best of the decade for that category, then you can get into that. But for me, I probably played 90% on home console compared to 10% on handheld. Not saying I didn't use handhelds, but just not nearly as much. So I thought, well, the best way to do this, let's do this by genre. And there's some genres here that you probably wouldn't even think about. So the first thing is the best platformer game. And that one's going to be Super Magnavox Odyssey. No. No. Super Mario Odyssey. Yeah, there we go. You see, you can get those two confused. Kind of. So, the reason why I chose Mario Odyssey for platformers, to me, this perfects what Mario has been trying to perfect for a long time. It's taken the Mario 64 formula and, I guess in a way, Mario Sunshine, less so Galaxy. That was a little different. And to me, it's perfected it. This is, to me, the best by a long shot 3D Mario game. Not saying the other ones are bad, but this is when you finally perfect the controls, the environments, the gameplay itself. This is the best of the best. Music is top notch in this. The Odyssey song from New Donk City when Pauline comes out and does her singing number. That song gets stuck in my head all the time. There's very few games where this music sticks with me long term. A lot of games, especially when I was younger, I used to turn the music off because to me it was distracting from the game. This game, music's amazing, gameplay's amazing, visuals are amazing. It would be a 10 out of 10 in my book. This was from 2017, so this is from when the Switch launched. Not the first game I had on the Switch. I remember this came out like in October. The Switch came out in March. I believe, don't quote me on that. My first game was Breath of the Wild, which unfortunately, as you'll find out very soon, didn't make the list. So, best platformer, Mario Odyssey on the Switch. The next game, I had a little reminder thing here. This is just a reminder. It's a pipe cleaner, and it has nothing to do with the game itself. And the game is actually Skyrim, which is going to be the best of open world adventure games. Now keep that in mind, open world adventure games. So games that would have been in this category would have been things like Fallout, of course, Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, stuff like that. Focus on adventure, less about shooting. So Skyrim came out in 2011. This was at the beginning of the 10s. And the reason why there's a pipe cleaner is because Skyrim is on everything. So it's in the shape of a 5, just like Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. So this is Skyrim on the pipe cleaner. I played it on the PC myself. I did have it on a console at one point. Didn't play very much of it. Same thing with Oblivion. I don't like playing Elder Scroll games on console. So one day I said, you know what? I'm just going to play this on PC. I bought it again. And, I beat every mission except for the... what do they call it? It was the demons. The demon missions. They were just so ridiculous to say, forget this. But funny enough, you beat the side quests first. It makes the main story easy. The main story is actually the worst part of the game, believe it or not. To me, the main story almost felt like an afterthought. They put so much time and effort in the side quests, which, hey, that's great. It made for a great game. moving on from there, we're going into the greatest shooting game. It's also an open world game, in a sense. I have another game coming up later that's going to take the the open world trophy, but for the best shooting game of the 2010s, it's going to be Borderlands 2. Now, I've played every Borderlands. I've 100%ed Borderlands 3, except for the DLC. I didn't get to that yet. But I still think Borderlands 2 was better. Borderlands 1 was good. It wasn't from the 2010s. I still think 2 beats 3. 3 had some glitches to it. They all had glitches, but there's certain things about 3 that, to me, makes 2 much better. I have it pulled up over here. 2 came out in 2012. So, as I'm trying to do here is give a fair gamut across the whole decade. So, Mario Odyssey was 17, and Skyrim was 2011. This is 2012. If anybody hasn't played Borderlands yet, start with the first one. You might as well. They have the Handsome Jack collection, which has, I think most of them. I don't know if it has the first one, but it has most of them on one disc. But yeah, you owe it to yourself to at least try Borderlands in some shape or form. If you've seen the last video, there's a shameless plug to the last video where I review Blue Ribbon Hard Coffee. And that segues us, in no way, shape, or form, into the best RPG game of the 2010s. And there's a lot to pick from out there. But for me, I'm not a huge RPG fan. I tried all kinds of stuff, Final Fantasies, Star Oceans. I've tried a lot. Paper Mario's pretty good. You see where I'm going with this. You start getting things a little less standard, not so traditional, and you start to really grab my attention. Paper Mario was up there. I 100%ed Color Splash. It's a great game, but Undertale, to me, it's got to be one. If I had to pick one of these as the best game from the previous decade, it would be Undertale. And just because this game, it's completely 100% different from anything else you played. You don't have to beat a single enemy in this game. You can play through the whole game. Now, granted, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult, but you can go through without killing anybody. You kind of talk them out of fighting, which is just, to me, there's no games out there that do that. This was one of the first. It says here 2015 to 2018. So, I think originally it was just an indie title in 2015. I got the Switch version. I know it was out on a lot of stuff, but to me, I had to have it on the Switch just because, that whole portability aspect. I played half of this in handheld mode. When I wasn't able to have a TV, if I was, out in a different room. But I did play a lot of it in docked mode as well, so I got to experience both with the main Switch controls, and I have a Pro Controller for when it's docked. But yeah, this game was great. I almost played through it a second time, trying to do it where I don't kill anybody, because the first time I did mixed, I saved some people, killed some people. I quickly realized how hard it is. And I looked it up, and people said it's not impossible, but it's like 10 times harder than if you just play through it normal. So going on from there, now I did talk about before, there's going to be a game that takes the open world genre as a whole. So this is like the open world shooting, what people would consider the Grand Theft Auto genre, in a way, you can call it that. But I didn't pick Grand Theft Auto 5. Yes, I played a lot of it, but to me, there was one that was better. And maybe it's because it was a little more serious in some ways, not in all ways, but in some ways. And that game would be Sleeping Dogs. Now, this game, I'm almost positive, because this is the definitive edition. I'm pretty sure it was on 360 originally. Let's see if you can get a date here. This one says 2014. It just says 2014 on the back of this. So basically, to me, this perfected it took the Grand Theft Auto style, it threw a more original, this is set in China, You're an undercover detective working as a triad member. I don't want to give away too many spoilers because it kind of went under the radar for a lot of people. It should have been, it should have been up there with Grand Theft Auto as how many people have played this game. Fortunately, it hasn't been. Um, I do have a video up about this game glitching out, so it's not perfect in every single way, but there's just little things about the environment. I kept saying they need to take Grand Theft Auto 6 and make it a global Grand Theft Auto where you can be, in one part of the game you're in, let's say, Miami, but then in the next part you're in Russia, the next part you're in China, maybe even going to England. They had a London Grand Theft Auto back in the day. They keep making Grand Theft Auto USA games. Explore the world, do something like this. There's Yakuza, I don't want to say Shenmue, that doesn't count. But there's a lot of those open world games in other countries where you can experience the culture. It's not 100% genuine, obviously, but, just walking around what would be a Chinese town. And it just, to me, it's more interesting than, Liberty City over and over, and Vice City and San Andreas and all that over and over. It'd be nice if they picked something else, which is why they didn't end up winning that category. So now we're going to go into some categories that, let's say I made up the category, because, you probably won't look this up. Party games. Clearly the winner is going to be Mario Party, and Super Mario Party is just beyond the best Mario Party game. There is, such a variety of things you can do in here. There was like a river where you did mini games as you're rowing yourself down a river with a team. There was a big team aspect in this. Now I have at least half of all Mario Parties. Probably, I'm going to say I'm approaching 3/4 of all Mario Parties. So I've played a lot of Mario Party. I've played a lot of the knockoffs. This is just the best one by a lot. If you haven't played this one, to me, this could be a Switch seller in itself. There's so many games on the Switch that could be Switch sellers. If I had to pick the best system from this generation, it would be the Switch. Just because of how much stuff is on it, and a lot of things that you can't get elsewhere, like all of the first-party stuff, all the Marios, the Zeldas, the Yoshis, and so on and so forth. So yeah, Mario Party, Super Mario Party wins the party category, without any doubt in my mind. Going on, the next category is one that I've gotten away from, which is a couple I've gotten away from. One of them, for example, fighting games. Used to be big into fighting games, but, I couldn't even pick one out this time because I've lost the interest. And unfortunately, I've kind of lost a lot of the interest in racing games. But the last one I remember really enjoying was Forza Horizon 3. Now, I know they did 4. I never bought 4. The Forza Motorsport games are great, but, I love the open world aspect of this. And I think 3 perfected on what 2 tried to do. Anytime you went in the dirt, though, even in this one, the handling was a little rough. But, this one definitely perfected. I'm sure 4 did it even better. But, I'll play that someday. But for ones that I've played, Forza Horizon 3 has to be the best racing game of this previous decade. This is one of those games that Microsoft's going to, milk to death. Unfortunately, because, Forza was... For the longest time, I was a Gran Turismo only fan. Gran Turismo made a shift right about the time they made the PSP game and the PS3 games, and now GT Sport. It's good, but Forza has overtaken them. There's a pun in there somewhere if you know racing. But yeah, unfortunately, it's a genre that I've gotten away from, so I thought about excluding that one as well, because I haven't played that in at least 2-3 years now. I think it said it was from 2016, so, unfortunately, I've gotten away from some genres, but at the same time, I've found new genres. And one of them is going to be, which I normally take these price stickers off, but the story-based genres. Games that rely more about the story than anything else, really. And the one that really takes it for me was A Way Out. This is about 2 fugitives who escape from prison and are just trying to get away from it all, trying to go back to their old lives. This is one of the only games, if not the only game I've ever seen. It requires 2 players. There is no way in any shape or form you can play this with one person. You have to have 2 players, which, for some people that's, a reason not to play. To me, it was great because of the ending, and I won't spoil the ending, but there's the ending of this thing, it just blows you away. And when I was saying, the best game of the decade went to Undertale, this would probably be number 2. Just because, it's not number 2 in the sense of, number 2, but it's a great second place to the decade. If you haven't played this, find somebody to play with and give that one a shot. You won't regret that one, I can guarantee you. Now to some stranger categories. The next one is the best remake of the past decade, and we saw a lot of this. The Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, there's a Spyro Trilogy remake, and they were good. From what I've seen, I didn't play much. I played a demo of one of them, and I've heard things about them, but there was changes. It wasn't 100% faithful to the old games, and in some ways that's good, and in some ways it's not. But one that really surprised me in how true to the original game it was, down to them literally taking the map of the original game, making an outline of it, and then just putting it in their new computer system and redesigning it, using everything from the old game, including the voice clips. They just, of course, didn't compress them this time. And that's the new copy of Medieval on PS4. This is literally the PS1 game remade. It has the same level shapes, it has, the same enemies, the same voice actors. This is as close as you're going to get to having a truly faithful remake. Because the one on PSP, it was just a reboot. And in a way, the Insane Trilogy and the Spyro thing was a half remake reboot. This was just a remake. And because of that, I love playing this, with the modern art style. I always said I would love to have seen what they would look like in HD. Got to see it. I'm hoping for a Medieval 2 remake, because I personally actually like that game a little more. Don't know if that's going to happen, but what I would love to see even more is a Medieval 3, which I used to, write my own storylines to that growing up, because I thought the series was dead, but there seems to be some interest. Hopefully there's enough for more games. So moving on, the next category is VR games, which is something that came on the latter half of the decade. So not many people talk about them, but my favorite VR game that I have, and I think it's like 5 or 6, of course they're all on PSVR, so anything that's on that system. I actually had to import this one from Europe because this was not released physically here in the States. And that's called Superhot VR. And basically what this is, think of the Matrix. So you're like a little agent guy going into these places, and there's guys running at you, but the trick is they only move when you move. So when you stop, everything stops. So if they fire a bullet at you and you stop, the bullet stops. So then you could go like this, and of course you do have to physically move yourself. So you go like this, and the bullet flies by your face, and then you go in slow motion like this, and then you shoot them back. Guy's coming from this side. You're using the PS Move controllers here, and you punch him in the face, and he shatters to pieces. And then, I'm out of bullets. Well, I'll just throw the gun in his face, and he shatters to pieces. Now what do? I'm start picking up things off the floor and throwing them at piece. It's a great game. This is addicting. It was on the VR demo disc that came with the headset, which is actually right over there. And I was sold on it. I played about 30 seconds of it, and it's like, all right, I'm buying this one. There was a few. Moss was another one I really enjoyed. Some of the horror ones were great, but it's like this. I had to track down the physical copy, which I believe came from the UK, because it says the PEGI 12. I think that's UK. It's fully in English, so I didn't have any trouble with that. So the last game I want to talk about is going to be the best hidden gem. And this hidden gem, I'm actually going, it's not going to be, 8th gen. This is actually a 7th gen game from 2013. This was exclusive, I believe, yes, to the PS3. And that is called Puppeteer. So in this game, you are a little puppet guy trying to escape from, I believe it was like a prison. It's been a while since I played this, but it was, when a boy named Kotaro was magically transformed into a wooden puppet, he must obtain a magical pair of scissors, find his head, and make his way back home. Yeah, that's right. Your head gets captured. You have to go save it. So you go through like this castle. The story in this is great. The art style in this thing is great. It's one of those. Not a lot of people played this game. I seen it once years ago, and I was like, well, that's different. Maybe I'll check it out. And I forgot about it for the longest time. And then all of a sudden, I found it again. I was like, all right, this time I'm getting it. And I didn't regret it. It does allow for PlayStation Move use. I didn't use that, even though I have 3 controllers now, thanks to the VR headset. I have the camera, but I just played it with the controller. If you can still find this one, this is one to pick up before it disappears and gets expensive. Because I think when I bought it, it was starting to go up in price again, and I found it at a GameStop or something. And, I could never regret owning this game. So, there's a lot of other games in the 2010s that, I could have made this list go on forever. Already had 21 and a half minutes. So we're going to end it here. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you at the end of the next decade. Goodbye then.